Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something a little different. Children's bedtime stories.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got volume 6 of a brand new collection. So that's 50 new stories.
Wow.
Now you might be thinking, bedtime stories? Really? But
Yeah.
stick with us. These are more than just, fluffy tales.
Yeah. What's fascinating about these is you can see how we try to shape young minds today.
Yeah.
Like a window into modern storytelling. The values that we want to pass on.
Yeah.
And maybe we can even get some ideas for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to admit, just flipping through these, I was so struck by how often dreams are at the center. Not just literal dreams, but big aspirations. Like there's one, The Sleepy Koala's Journey to Cloud Mountain, where Kiki the koala, she really doesn't want to leave her comfy eucalyptus tree,
Right.
And it made me think, is that reluctance to even venture out in a story? Is that saying something about, the world today?
It might. It's a great observation.
Yeah.
Because in classic children's literature, adventure was always like exciting.
Yes.
But this hesitation that Kiki has, it might just be, like you said, this generation grows up with so much stimulation. So they actually crave the familiar. But then the story, it kind of reassures them. It gently encourages them to embrace new experiences, showing that even the most reluctant adventurers can find something rewarding.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's not just Kiki. The sleepy giraffe and the floating islands. Gemma the giraffe, she literally dreams her way to these magical islands.
Oh.
So it's not about erasing those sleepy tendencies, but showing how imagination can be a powerful tool.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, it validates those kids who might not be, the stereotypical go-getters.
Yeah.
But it tells them that their inner world, their dreams, that's a valid path too, to adventure, to self-discovery.
I love that. Okay, so we've got this theme of dreams being powerful, but what about, the classic power of friendship trope? That's everywhere in these stories too.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting how it's always tied to problem solving.
Right.
Like in Timmy and the Glow-in-the-Dark Fireflies, Timmy actually joins the Fireflies to spread light and joy. So it's not just about having friends, it's about how working together leads to something good.
Right.
Like community building.
Right. And there are so many examples. The animals all help Gemma get to those floating islands. And Zara finds her crew in Dreamland.
Yeah.
It's like a constant reminder. Like, even if you're sleepy or scared, you've got friends.
Yeah, you've got people. And that message isn't just for kids either.
No.
We face challenges all the time that feel really hard when we're alone. These stories just give us this simple but powerful reminder. We don't have to do everything ourselves.
Okay. But it's not all dreamy landscapes and helping hands, right? There are some stories that really just tackle like childhood anxieties head on, like fear of the dark.
And their approach is really interesting. They don't just deny those fears. They offer ways to cope. Take Nina. In Mina's nighttime adventure to Glitter Grove, she conquers her fear, not by ignoring it, but by exploring and befriending those creatures of the night.
Oh, wow.
It's like a reframing, turning the unknown into something, enchanting.
Oh, that's so clever. There's nothing to be scared of. It's let's go see what's actually there.
Exactly.
And that actually ties into that theme of finding magic in the everyday, right?
It does. Like even darkness can be magical if you look at it the right way.
Absolutely. And that's The Night the Stars Played Hide and Seek, where Mia, she makes a simple game into this cosmic adventure. So wonder doesn't require grand gestures or, exotic locations.
Right.
It's about changing your perspective, finding the extraordinary within the ordinary.
Which again is a message for all of us, not just kids. It's so easy to get bogged down in routine. These stories just give us a little nudge to remember that magic is hiding in plain sight. Yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable things about them. It's a gentle invitation to look beyond the surface, to always have a sense of wonder and curiosity, no matter how old you are.
Okay. But beyond these themes, I noticed something else about these stories. They feel really modern. Like the characters are from all different backgrounds, there are environmental themes, and I haven't found a single damsel in distress.
Right. There's a real effort to reflect modern values, like that diversity, the characters, settings. It just normalizes those differences for these young readers. And the environmental messages, they encourage responsibility for nature.
Yeah.
And by not having traditional gender roles, young girls can see themselves as active participants in their own stories.
So it's not just about telling a good story. It's about shaping a worldview, right?
Absolutely.
Showing kids a world that's inclusive, where they can be curious and kind, and where even the most ordinary thing can hold a spark of magic.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes these stories so compelling. They're not just bedtime entertainment. They're a reflection of the world we're trying to create, one that values empathy, imagination, and following our dreams.
And speaking of dreams, let's look at some specific stories that really stood out. One that caught my eye was The Night Wind and the Dreaming Tree. Mia and Leo go on this amazing journey through Dreamland. But before they even set off, they're gathering under this dreaming tree, sharing their stories, hopes, and dreams.
Interesting. What I like about that is how it shifts the focus.
Yeah.
It goes from individual dreaming to like collective dreaming. It's not about what each kid wants. It's about the power of sharing those experiences. That community shapes their dreams.
Yeah, it's like those individual dreams are being fueled by this collective energy, this sense of belonging, a shared purpose.
Exactly. And that's such a powerful message, especially today. You know, when individualism is so emphasized, these stories remind us that our dreams, they're often interconnected, that we
Yeah.
can draw strength and inspiration from each other.
Okay, that's such a good point. Now, I have to say, the story that really pulled at my heartstrings, The Magic Dreamdust of Moonlit Meadows. Leela finds this pouch of glowing dust, and it can bring dreams to life. I mean, what a beautiful metaphor, right? For the power of imagination.
It's beautiful, and it makes you think, what dreams would we bring to life if we had that dream dust? It's a good reminder that our potential is limited by our own imagination.
It is. It makes you want to grab a notebook and just jot down all those wild dreams that you've hidden away. And speaking of dreams taking flight, Twinkle the little star that painted the sky. Twinkle's this little star who wants to add color to the night sky. But all the other stars, they doubt her.
Ah, a classic story of perseverance and self-belief. What resonates here is embracing our unique talents, even when people doubt us. It tells us to find and express our own sparkle without needing other people to tell us it's good.
It's like a gentle reminder that it's not about being the brightest star, it's about shining your own light. And that message is so important for kids, honestly, for adults too. We let self-doubt just dim our own light so often.
Yeah, you're right. This story reminds us to celebrate who we are, to be happy about expressing our talents, no matter how other people see them. It's about owning our brilliance, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem.
Okay, so we've talked about dreams, friendship, and courage. But this theme that keeps coming up, it's this idea of finding magic in the everyday. And the story that just embodies this perfectly is The Sleepy Bunny and the Magic Moonflower.
Yeah.
So Benny, he's the sleepy bunny. His friends want him to go on adventures with them. So he uses this magic moonflower to stay awake, to have fun.
What I think is interesting about this story is how it addresses rest and play. It says that kids, and adults too, we need rest. But it also shows us that if we can bridge the gap between our needs and our desires,
Yeah.
it can lead to really great experiences.
Yeah. It's like a gentle reminder. We don't always have to choose between what we should do and what we want to do. Sometimes there's a magical place in the middle where we can balance both.
Exactly. It's about finding those creative solutions, embracing, flexibility, recognizing that even ordinary situations can be magical if we approach them with an open mind and a playful spirit.
And one story that really shows this is Jasper and the Fireflies' Starry Rescue. Jasper helps these fireflies whose magical glow is fading. It reminds us that small acts of kindness can have a big impact.
Yeah, that's a great one. Jasper's story shows us the ripple effect of what we do. Compassion and empathy can really change things for ourselves and those around us.
It's such a simple but profound message. It reminds us that we can all make a difference no matter how small our actions might seem.
And what's amazing is how it's presented. It's so accessible and engaging for young children. It's like planting those seeds of compassion and empathy early on, encouraging them to see themselves as, agents of positive change.
Okay, before we move on, I have to mention a story that really made me laugh. It's called Leo and the Midnight Marshmallow Castle.
Yes. That's a great one.
So Leo finds this path to a castle, and it's entirely made of marshmallows. I mean, who wouldn't want to go there?
Oh, it was pure escapism. And I think it speaks to, that universal appeal. Indulging ourselves, imagining a world where, our every whim is catered to. It's like a reminder that sometimes it's okay to just enjoy the sweetness of life and let our imaginations run wild.
Exactly. It's like a permission slip to be silly, embrace the absurd, and remember that life doesn't always have to be serious.
And that's so important for kids and adults. We get so caught up in everything that we forget to just have fun.
So true. Okay, well, we've covered a lot in this first batch of stories, dreams, friendship, courage, and finding magic in the everyday. But what's really interesting is how these themes are all woven together, creating this tapestry of values
Yeah.
that feel both timeless and, incredibly relevant to the world today.
And what's really striking is how these stories,
Mm-hmm.
while simple on the surface, often use pretty sophisticated storytelling techniques,
How interesting.
like the sleepy whale and the deep sea dreams. Wally drifts off to this amazing underwater dreamland. And it's not just random, it's structured like that classic hero's journey, with challenges, helpers, all that.
You're right. I hadn't even thought of that. So it's like these kids are getting a mini lesson in storytelling without even knowing it.
Exactly. They absorb these fundamental patterns, and that influences how they understand stories, how conflict and resolution, drive the story forward.
That's fascinating. Okay, well, another story that I think uses structure really well is The Little Fox Who Followed a Shooting Star. So Flick isn't just trying to find where the star goes. He has to get past all these obstacles, and he meets helpers on the way.
Right. It's a classic quest narrative. And each encounter, it has a purpose. The challenges, they test Flick's resolve. The helpers, they give him guidance and support. And in the end, it's through trying things out, making mistakes, and navigating the unknown. That's how Flick reaches his goal.
And isn't that just like life, too? We face challenges all the time. We look for guidance, and we learn from what happens.
Exactly. These stories, they're not just there to entertain. They're giving these kids the tools they need to deal with, how complex life can be.
Okay, well, speaking of complex, The Night the Moon Became a Dreamcatcher. That one really got to me. So Mia has to team up with Linda the Moon Fairy to collect all these dreams and keep them safe.
Right. What's interesting there is how dreams are treated as real things, something you have to protect. It makes dreams more than just thoughts. It gives them weight, makes them important.
Yeah, you're right. It's like saying our dreams are valuable, and so are the dreams of the people around us.
And it shows how our culture is changing. We're starting to see mental and emotional well-being as important. Dreams and hopes, they're not silly anymore. They're seen as part of a good life.
That's a really interesting point. Okay, well, another story that I was thinking about, The Sleepy Panda's Glowstone Adventure. Pippin finds this glowstone, and it takes him on a journey to learn about himself. And there's this message about getting over your fears.
Right, right. What's really powerful there is how the glowstone is like a symbol for Pippin's own strength and guidance. It's not that he magically becomes fearless. He finds courage inside himself.
Right.
And for kids who are dealing with their own anxieties, that's a powerful message.
It's like a little reminder that we all have that strength within us, even when we're scared or unsure.
Exactly. These stories are always reminding us that we're stronger than we think we are, more capable.
Okay, well, one story that I just loved the imagery, Zara and the Rainbow Bridge to Dreamland. So Zara loves color, and that leads her to this magical bridge. It's like a metaphor, right, for how our passions can take us to places we never expected.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It says we should embrace our interests, our curiosity, follow the things that spark our imagination. And it shows us how exploration and discovery can be so rewarding, even if it takes us off the well-worn path.
And sometimes those unexpected detours take us to the most amazing places.
Exactly. It's about trusting your gut, embracing the unknown, and letting yourself be guided by the things that light you up.
Okay, well, switching gears a bit. The midnight melody of the star crickets really stood out to me. Mia joins these crickets for a concert, and it brings all these different animals together.
It's a beautiful way to show how music brings people together. It goes beyond language, species, even personal taste. Creates this shared experience of joy and harmony. And it speaks to, how we all need to connect, to find common ground, even when we're different.
Yeah, it's like a little reminder. Music, or maybe art in general, has this incredible power to bridge gaps and bring people together.
Yeah. And it highlights how important it is to have those spaces where people can connect, where differences are celebrated, where you can build community through shared experiences.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about themes and how the stories are told. But I'm also curious about the visuals. These illustrations are so vibrant and detailed.
The art is so important. For young kids who are still learning to read, those illustrations give them context, help them understand, and just fuel their imagination.
Exactly. And the style in this collection, it's fun and whimsical, but not, too childish. There's depth and richness that I think appeals to everyone.
Yeah, it's tough to get that right. The pictures need to be interesting for young readers, but they can't be too simple or talk down to them.
Okay, well, one story where I think the visuals are just amazing is Oliver and the Enchanted Nighttime Woods. Oliver goes into these woods at night, and the way they show light and shadow, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, the way they use light is amazing. It creates mystery, wonder, even a bit of magic. It goes perfectly with that theme of facing your fears and embracing the unknown.
You're right, it's like the illustrations are inviting you to step into that darkness, to discover the beauty that's waiting there.
And it shows the power of visual storytelling. Sometimes a picture can express a feeling or an idea better than words.
Absolutely. And in this case, the illustrations really do elevate the storytelling. It's like a multisensory experience that captures you and makes you think. Okay, well, another story where they use visuals so cleverly. The night the clouds turn to cotton candy. I mean, who doesn't love cotton candy, right? But the
Yeah.
way they show that change, it's so whimsical and delightful.
It's a perfect example of how visuals can make a story more emotional. Those cotton candy clouds, they make you feel that childlike wonder, pure joy and delight.
And it goes back to that theme of finding magic in everyday things, right? Like a reminder that even ordinary things can become extraordinary if we look at them in a new way.
Exactly. Those illustrations, they're not just decoration, they're part of the story itself, inviting us to engage with it on a deeper level, more imaginative.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've only scratched the surface of these stories. We could spend hours on each one, finding hidden meanings and appreciating how beautifully they're written and illustrated. But I think it's time to shift gears a bit. Talk about what these stories mean for the bigger picture. What are they telling us about the world today?
That's a great question. I think these stories show us how important it is to nurture imagination, empathy, a sense of wonder in kids. They also show a shift towards more inclusive stories, more diversity, reflecting a world that's more connected and values different viewpoints.
And isn't it interesting how these stories, even though they're for kids, they often resonate with adults too?
Oh, absolutely. I think they tap into these universal themes, things we all want, reminding us that it's important to follow our dreams, be kind, and find magic in the everyday, no matter how old we are.
You're right. It's like these stories offer a glimpse into a world. It's familiar, but also something we aspire to, a world where imagination is everything, and there's always the potential for joy and wonder. Okay, well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive, exploring the themes, the way the stories are told, and the visual elements of these bedtime stories. But one thing's for sure, these stories aren't just entertainment. They're shaping young minds and reminding us of the things that really matter. So, as we head into our final segment, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the overall impact of these stories. What kind of world are we creating for children through these narratives? It feels like they're really trying to, put in this sense of hope and optimism, even when the stories deal with tough stuff or anxieties.
Yeah, it's true. You don't really see any cynicism or despair, which is nice for a change. It's mostly positive,
Yeah.
emphasizing resilience, problem solving, and just having that can-do attitude.
And it makes you wonder, is this what kids need today? Or is it what we think they need? Are we maybe making things seem a little too, rosy?
That's a good question. There's definitely a conversation to be had about, protecting children from the hard parts of life versus preparing them to face those things head on. But maybe these stories aren't trying to pretend that bad things don't exist. Maybe it's more about instilling hope. You can get through challenges, that even in the dark, there's potential for light.
I see what you mean. It's not about pretending that everything's perfect. It's about giving kids the tools and the right mindset to deal with the tough stuff that everyone goes through.
Exactly. And did you notice how many of these stories have characters who are, you know, sleepy, hesitant, or a little unsure? It's like they're saying, hey, it's okay to not be the brave hero all the time.
Yeah, that's so true. Like in the Sleepy Elephant's Ride to the Moonlit Savannah, Emba, he's not on this big, crazy adventure. He's just looking for a peaceful place, and that's totally okay.
Right. It's subtle, but it's an important message. You don't have to be loud and always trying to be the best to deserve a happy ending. Sometimes it's about being happy in those quiet moments, just being yourself.
Which, let's be honest, is something we could all probably stand to learn a little bit more about.
Absolutely. We live in a world that tells us to be busy and successful all the time. These stories remind us that rest, thinking about things, and just having peace are important too.
Okay, so if we were to sum it all up, what would you say are the big takeaways from these bedtime stories? What's the main message we're giving kids? And maybe even to ourselves?
I think it comes down to a few basic ideas. First, your imagination can do anything. These stories tell us to dream big, be curious, and see the world as a place full of possibilities.
And that connects to the second idea, which is being kind, understanding each other, and being part of a community. The stories keep saying that we're stronger together, that even little acts of kindness can make a difference.
Exactly. And lastly, I think these stories remind us to find magic in everyday life, to see the special in the normal, to appreciate the world around us, and to never forget the power of dreams.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like these bedtime stories, they're not just about helping kids fall asleep. They're planting these seeds of hope, kindness, and imagination. Things that will hopefully grow into something beautiful.
Couldn't agree more. They give us a peek into a world where anything's possible, where dreams are important, and where connecting with each other is celebrated.
Well, as we finish up this deep dive, I'm left feeling this sense of wonder. Like, I appreciate the power of stories even more now. Who knew something as simple as a bedtime story could have so much depth and meaning?
It really shows you how powerful storytelling is. These stories, they go beyond age, culture, time. They remind us that we're all human and what really matters in life.
And you know what? Maybe they'll even inspire us to see our own world with a bit more wonder and kindness. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and keep believing in the magic all around us.